So all of our career panelists, if you could turn your cameras on and get set up, Felix is going to do introductions and tee it up while I pin you all so that we can see you all. Thank you.
So I'd like to introduce Dr. Kenneth Morton. Now, he is a multi-established author. He's the CEO of Infinity Leadership Consulting, LLC. He's been in management for the last 26 years. And he is a phenomenal person. We do iron sharpens iron, and I have learned more in a few weeks from him than I have in years of schooling. So without further ado, Dr. Kenneth Morton.
Thank you, Felix. Is my mic on? I want to make sure you all can hear me. Great, great. I see a couple of heads nodding. Thank you so much, Dr. Christie, for inviting me and allowing me to be a part of this phenomenal Youth College Excellence Summit. I have to give a shout out before we even get into the college piece. Jamin, phenomenal job. You said some things, and I hope our audience was listening. A couple of things stood out, and I think definitely transition into what we're about to talk about here. The college career professional panel. We've got some outstanding panelists that I'm just about to introduce, allow them to introduce themselves. But a couple of things that stood out. When it comes to career, I have to jump on this from right from the beginning. The career is a marathon, not a sprint. And I think for our parents and youth that are listening, you're going to hear that resonate in several of the responses from our panelists today. Second thing that stood out, Jamin, thank you for saying it. It's applicable to the career. It's all about relationships. And you're going to hear that in the responses as well. And the last thing, not to duplicate everything you just said, you, as a young person that's going to transition from college into a career, you are the one that is the most responsible for your career and your career success. So thank you, Jamin. Thank you for making those strong points. And when it comes to career, if you've not done it before, consider that your career coaching starts today. Okay, so without any further ado, let me start by introducing our panelists and allowing each of them to tell you a little bit about them. Then we're going to get to some good questions that are going to give you some great information. Our first panelist that I'm going to introduce, allow her to introduce, is Miss Couture Brown.
Hello, everyone. My name is Coutura Brown. I am an energy attorney at Sidley Austin, LLP. It's a top international law firm. There, I assist clients with all sorts of energy matters before the Energy Regulatory Commission. And so I assist natural gas clients, electric clients, energy traders, pretty much the whole gamut. I went to Florida State University for undergrad, as well as my master's degree. I have an undergraduate degree in African American Studies and Political Science, and my master's degree is in Public Administration. I went to George Washington University Law School for law school, and I have been practicing in law firms ever since I graduated. So I'm very happy to be here.
Great, thank you. So we have the attorney in the house. We have to make sure that all of our words and language is clear and distinct and legal. Thank you. Our next panelist, Dr. Felicia Presley.
Hello and good afternoon. My name is Dr. Felicia Presley. I am a licensed clinical counselor. I also am a professor at the Chicago School of Professional Psychology. Not only am I a therapist, but I also make new therapists. And it is my passion to work with adolescents, making sure that they are on the right path as well. And along with, I listened to the last panelist, the last presenter, talking about athleticism, academics, but they also have to have great mental health as well to stay on those fields of play. And so that's where I come in. So hello, everyone.
Thank you, Dr. Presley. And as we all know, mental health in the career, woo, so important, so important. Thank you. Our next panelist, Francesca Sizer.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Francesca Sizer. I am a district sales manager for Amgen, which is a biotechnology company. I'm a results-oriented professional leader that's actually been in the pharmaceutical industry now for about 21 years. And my team covers, which is a team of 9, covers the states of Virginia, Maryland, DC, West Virginia, North Carolina, and South Carolina. And we are currently in the process of launching a new asthma drug for severe asthma. I'm a proud graduate of HU, the real HU, Hampton University, and a proud member, if you can't tell by the pink and green blurred background on my outfit, of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated.
Let me pause and just say double whoop whoop.
Exactly, Dr. Murray. It is my distinct pleasure to be among such sharp iron and to be able to talk a little bit about my profession today. Thank you.
Thank you. Outstanding. Our next panelist, Nia Tanner. Nia?
Yes, thank you. Good morning, good afternoon, rather, everyone. My name is Nia Tanner. I am currently a utility consumer advocate in the Office of the People's Counsel for the District of Columbia. For undergraduate, I attended Smith College in Northampton, Massachusetts. There, I was an econ major, and I thought I was going to become a stockbroker and live on Wall Street, or work on Wall Street, live in New York City. But that didn't happen. Instead, I went to law school. I attended the University of Maryland for my JD, and I have had 3 career turns so far in my career, all in public service. But I started out doing civil rights work. Then I went to doing administrative work for the federal government, and now I am doing consumer protection work. And I'm glad to be here.
And we are so glad you're here. Thank you for that introduction. Our next panelist, Dr. Bernita Glenn White.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for having me. I am Bernita Glenn White. Wow, what do I do? I do a lot of things now. I was a former K-12 educator in the mathematics area. Then I moved to become a college professor. And now I am actually an entrepreneur working in the human development space through speaking, coaching, and consulting. I'm also an author of several books and professional articles. My background, I said my bachelor's degrees are dual in education and in mathematics. Got a few in between in leadership and technology. And then my PhD is in mathematics as well. I am a proud member of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated, and I'm so happy to be here with you all today.
Excellent, excellent. Young people, if you ever hear anyone say, do the math, this is a great example of someone who did the math. Thank you. All right, our next panelist, Carla Williams.
Good afternoon. I'm Carla Williams. I am an attorney as well. I have been for the past 19 years an assistant general counsel with the District of Columbia Department of Health. In that role, I advise the agency. I work with the health boards that regulate and license health professionals in the District of Columbia. Starting in 2019, I became an entrepreneur and opened a shop on Etsy where I create and sell items and that I make in my spare time. And then I also recently have started to expand my side business to do home staging. So that is where you will help sellers and realtors who are putting a home on the market to put it in the best light possible to help it to sell more quickly and at a higher rate than what you have requested to sell it. So that is something that I'm moving into, a space that I'm moving into, and I've been very excited to do. I'm also a member of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated. And just my background briefly, I did my undergrad at Lincoln University in Jefferson City, Missouri, which is an HBCU. And I have my law degree from the University of Maryland in Baltimore. So I'm happy to be here today and be a part of this panel. Thank you.
Thank you, Carla. Thank you. So gentlemen, I know you're probably wondering, when will my time come? It's the way I was raised. I had to get to the ladies first. But next up, let's hear from Joe Williams.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Joe Williams, originally from Chesapeake, Virginia, but now living in Bowie, Maryland. I work for the Department of Homeland Security for the U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Service. I'm an IT specialist there. I've been there for about 3 years now. And what I do is requirements lifecycle management and project management in our effort to update the immigration forms and make the system more accessible for the immigrants requesting green cards and citizenship status. I'm a graduate of the University of Virginia. I have a bachelor's in sociology as well as a master's in sociology from the University of Virginia. I played football for the University of Virginia for 5 years. I redshirted my first year, so I'm very familiar with some of the things that the previous presenter was talking about. I also have a master's degree in public administration from George Washington University. And originally I came out, when I came out of college or finished up my master's, I started working at the US Census Bureau. So I worked there for 19 years before I came over to the Citizenship and Immigration Service. Yeah, I think that's about it. Thank you for inviting me, Dr. Christie. I forgot to mention, I also am a proud member of Kappa Alpha Psi Fraternity Incorporated. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Williams. Last, certainly but not least, our final panelist, Mr. Anthony Walker.
Good afternoon, everyone. I just said my name is Anthony Walker. I'm a retired U.S. Army officer, 24 years. I currently serve as a program manager at the National Nuclear Security Agency. I have a bachelor's degree in international studies from Bowie State University, HBCU Pride. I also have a master's in diplomacy with a concentration in conflict management from Norwich University. I currently, in my spare time, I work as a program coordinator for a mentorship program called Alpha Academy, Alpha Scholars. That's a program under the Untitled Chapter of Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated, 06. I also served as a board member for Big Brothers Big Sisters in the National Capital Area. Finally, the thing I'm most proud of is proud dad of 5 children, 2 college graduates, two current college students, and then my baby boy is a high school freshman. So I go the whole gambit talking about being able to have a little bit of experience in all those different areas, prepping kids to go to college. Thank you.
Excellent, excellent. Thank you to each and every one of our panelists for those wonderful introductions. Dr. Christie, you assembled a great cast of individuals that are going to convey some wonderful information. I can't wait to get to it. So without further ado, let's go ahead and jump in. Now, Dr. Christie, for someone, I will ask, keep me honest on time because there's such a wealth of information. We could probably go on for hours and hours.
Sure.
But I realize we don't have that much.
I'll give you a 5-minute warning.
Got it. Thank you. So let's jump in. We, as our young people have heard, we have such a wealth and a variety and a diversity of backgrounds, majors, interests, careers. Very wonderful. I'm going to start with Carla. Carla, tell us, how did you choose your career or your profession? Where did that come from?
Absolutely. First, can you hear me okay? I do have a fan running in the background.
Yes.
Excellent, excellent. So I'll make my story as quickly as possible. I chose the profession of law my senior year of high school, and it was really by chance. I had always wanted to be a medical doctor, and that's what I thought I was going to do. But I took a class my senior year, which was kind of an intro into law. And as part of that, we did a field trip to a local courthouse, and we did a mock trial where I played the defense attorney. And I was so adamant and passionate that my classmates voted my client, the jury found my client guilty because they said I took it too seriously. And after the proceeding, the judge pulled me to the side and he said, I don't know if you've thought about becoming a lawyer, but you really should. And that really pushed me in that direction. I did my criminal justice, my degree, undergrad degree is criminal justice. And I just continued on in that arena. And that's where it started.
Great. Thank you. Coutura, tell us, how and why did you choose your professional career?
Yeah, so my parents said that ever since I could talk, I said I wanted to be a judge. And I mean, we don't know where that came from. We didn't have any judges, attorneys, anything like that in our family at the time. And quite honestly, I just kind of stuck with it. So instead of, pursuing the judgeship path, I just went to, well, you have to go to law school, of course, right? Be a licensed attorney, in order to become a judge. But, I just stuck with the law. So maybe, I'll be a judge one day, Supreme Court, perhaps, but we'll see.
Love it. You set your goals high. Supreme Court. Love to hear it. Excellent. Anthony, I'm going to ask you the same question. How did you choose your profession in your career?
Great question. So when I was in high school, I saw the movie 2010. So this is back in the 80s. So it's an older space movie. But I saw that and it was about the U.S. and the Russians did this joint mission to, I think it was Jupiter. And I was amazed and I wanted to be an astronaut. Well, after going to University of Maryland College Park for a year, I realized that engineering was not going to work out for me. But at the same time, I always had a love and a passion for foreign languages and cultures. So as I went to Bowie State, I saw they had a major in international studies. And once I went there and we started talking about international relations and foreign policy and comparative political developments, I knew that was going to be my passion. And following that, I went into the military as a military intelligence officer, and I loved it and have been able to work with NATO, joint military forces, the United Nations. It's been an awesome experience and being able to travel all around the world. So that was really my passion. I'm glad I followed it. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you. And I'm glad that our students and scholars heard you say you followed your passion. That can be so important as you're determining your way. So thank you for sharing that with us. I'm going to shift gears. Dr. Presley, when we think about certain careers and certain skill sets and proficiencies, sometimes it goes very, very deep within a vein. But what I'd like for you to talk about are what are a couple of top universal skills or capabilities that are needed to be successful in your profession?
All right, some of the things that are needed, one, a great personality, right? Not everyone has a great personality and a great attitude. Sometimes you have to adjust your attitude from time to time. Another skill is being flexible. In any profession, you have to be flexible. Things, you may have a schedule, however, things may turn out that someone may not be able to show up for a particular meeting. So you have to be flexible to reschedule, to revise, and revamp. In my particular field, you have to be able to communicate well, to be a great listener. I think those skills are universal to any position in any career, because if you can listen and pay attention and understand what someone is saying, then it is important that you can respond to the things that they are asking. You can respond to the things that they are discussing that are crucial or even a crisis to them. Be able to have a calm response sometimes. Sometimes it's hard to do that when you are angered, flustered, or upset. However, being able to remain calm, because sometimes someone will come to you in a attactive or aggressive tone. However, sometimes you can reset that tone with your tone of calmness. So those are some universal skills that can be used in any career, but especially in my career as well in counseling and therapy.
Excellent. Thank you. Nia, anything you'd like to add? Any universal skills that you've observed that are just must-haves in your career profession?
So yes, and I'm glad you asked me this question. A lot of people think the hallmark of being an attorney is talking. And while talking is important, as Dr. Presley said, active listening is really the skill, because if you don't listen, you don't really know what to say, right? So being able to be a great active listener is a wonderful skill. Also, writing, having strong writing skills is something that every single job I've ever applied to after law school has asked about. And then I think in terms of a capability, confidence. You have to be confident in your skill set, especially as a person of color in the predominantly white field. You need to have your confidence because you don't always get reaffirmed. So you have to be able to reaffirm yourself.
Love that. You know, when it comes to listening, our youth definitely need to hear, listen for understanding and not just listen, waiting for your turn to talk or respond. So I'm glad you touched upon that. Excellent point. Great. So our next panelist, Francesca, here's a question for you. How do you balance working with others who may not look like you or have similar values as you while being authentically yourself at the same time? How do you balance that?
Question. That is an awesome question. I think it starts, number one, in first having confidence in yourself and who you are. The beauty of any work environment, team, organization is diversity of thought, diversity of experience. And so the way I balance that is to, number one, know what I need to know, be prepared, and show up able to articulate whatever the subject is at hand. In line with the last question, I would add a key skill is being able to network. Network with whatever profession you're in, whatever crowd you're in, whatever organization. Our students should be able to network in high school with coaches. And so as you actually find common ground with other people, what I find is we actually have more in common than we actually have that's actually different. And when you can find those commonalities, it's much easier to actually bring forth thoughts, ideas, sales approaches, to be able to kind of connect with those around me that might not look like me, sound like me, or come from where I'm from. So that's how I deal with that.
Excellent. Thank you. That becomes so big in the work world within our respective careers. Because let's face it, many of us are in spaces where there are not a lot of people in those same spaces that look like us or have our values. So thank you for sharing.
Dr. Morton, it's important that we show up as our authentic selves because we bring a lot to the table. And by showing up and showing how great we are, the likelihood of someone behind us being able to be brought into that, or us being able to make a seat at the table for someone else that looks like us, is important. So it's important not to assimilate to the majority, but to bring your authentic self to the table. Great point.
Love that. It's always important for us to lift as we climb. As we're climbing, let's lift someone else along with us. Love that. Joe Williams, tell us about your experience in working with diversity, those that are different, and bringing your whole authentic self to your workspace and your career on a regular basis.
I'll echo what was said before. Definitely being prepared. One thing that does is it makes sure that you have to know what what your job is, know what your assignment was, and also being able to bring something a little bit extra to the table so that when you have to stand up and speak, you're confident in the data that you're presenting, whatever the visualization in my terms, or a lot of what I do is I communicate with customers of trying to elicit the requirements from them in order to build a software. So I have to really have an understanding of what they want. And then when I'm presenting it back to them, be very confident in what I'm, in the information or the diagrams that I'm providing back to them. One thing too is to understand the room, understand what cliques may have formed in the room, how they tend to operate. Some offices, some meeting rooms are very deferential to whoever's the highest in command or has the highest rank. Some are very open, kind of like a King Arthur, it's a round table, everybody has an equal say. So kind of understanding that helps you to understand how to fit in. One thing that I also think about too is I kind of let bias arise. I don't assume it walking in. I don't walk in thinking I have to have my dukes up ready to defend myself and things like that. I kind of try to see what there's a lot of good in people. There's a lot of open book in people, and you have an opportunity to write your story for them. They're not necessarily making assumptions. I'm not saying assumptions don't exist, but let them percolate up as opposed to going in thinking you have to battle. And then the last thing, I was just taking my little notes, is to have your own peer group. We have a group at our job, and we affectionately call it Wakanda, where we'll meet offline, have our own separate meetings, and we just talk. Sometimes it's about not looking like others. That comes up, but a lot of times it's really the last conversation we had. The goal was for everyone to submit to rewrite their resumes and submit for job opportunities, just to get in front of someone else, or just to see what else is out there. So it wasn't necessarily about not looking like others, but having that group really is supportive as you're moving through your job and your career.
Excellent, excellent. So Joe, I have to ask, when you all have these Wakanda meetings, do you all come dressed in appropriate garb?
Well, we're mostly virtual in my job, so no, but we definitely, like, when we put our the name for the meeting, we sometimes will slide in Wakanda.
Got it. Excellent, excellent. Thank you for sharing that. Dr. Bernita Glenn White, I did not forget about you. So I have a question for you. What do you enjoy most and least about your profession?
I know you didn't forget about me. Currently, so I've transitioned from being in a professional space as a college professor. So now I'm an entrepreneur, but I can talk about even when I was a professor in a STEM field, teaching and training and development, because I still do that now as a entrepreneur. It's all about training and development. So skill sets just transferred. What I love the most about all of that is just teaching. I get to teach, I taught professionally, and I get to now do it on my own and on my own terms. So sharing my knowledge and a different perspective, how I want it to go out. And at this point now I can do it without any boundaries. So I love that the most, being free to do what I want to do and how I want to do it. What I love least about it, there's nothing I love least about it, because I get to, it's a fun and exciting time. Being an entrepreneur, especially transitioning, and the important part I want to share is gaining those skill sets along the way has helped me not to have a lease, I should say. So during when I was a student, when I was a teacher, when I was a professor, and all of those things, I've gathered those skill sets to help me look at the opportunities that I get to do now. So all of the challenges I've had, they've set me up for this. So there is really no lease, I will say, about being in this space that I'm in.
Great, thank you. Sounds like you're in a good place and a great fit for it. Coutura, tell us, what do you enjoy the most and the least about where you are, where you position yourself?
Right. So what I enjoy the most is that I get to work on a lot of cutting edge, novel issues. So these are issues that our clients have brought to us that where they don't know what to do with them. And oftentimes the senior partners on my team don't know what to do. And so we are all truly learning together. And it allows me to have more of a voice and to really, say my opinion and what I think of stuff. And then it also helps me practice some of those interpersonal and soft skills that I think, are very important to anyone's career. So, making sure that I'm asking the right questions, not being afraid to challenge the partner in a very respectful way, of course, when I don't necessarily agree with his answer. And we have that sort of relationship, and I have those interpersonal skills to where I can do that, without him being offended. And so I really like that. What I like the least, I would say, is that it's my schedule is very unpredictable. So working in a big law firm, we have high billable hour requirements, and we don't always know when the clients are going to call us and say we have an issue. So sometimes I've been planning to walk out the door, meet my friends for dinner, and a client issue has come up that's an emergency, and I've had to reschedule those plans. Fortunately, it doesn't happen that often, but it does happen. And so if I had to pick something that I like the least, that I do not like, that would be the one thing.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. Dr. Presley, you mental health, you touched upon that, and I made a little note on my paper. You didn't see it because my pen is down here. I made a little note on my paper to be sure to ask you this question because I think you have some valuable information. There's a lot of stress, there's a lot of pressure in our careers, just in life in general. I'm not saying anything that's over the top profound. We know there are a lot of pressures out there. Early in one's career, and sometimes later, one can suffer from impostor syndrome. And for those that aren't aware of what impostor syndrome is, it's questioning, do I belong? Everyone else seems so much further along than me. Everyone seems to know so much more than me. That's impostor syndrome. So for our audience, how does one avoid imposter syndrome early on in their career when they may be the least tenured person on the team?
Wonderful question. One way is mentorship. When you are the new kid on the block in the profession, try to join your professional organizations. That's one way of aligning with mentorship as well. So I'm sure the attorneys on the call also have a professional organization that they can reach out to and reach back as well for young attorneys. Most all professions have professional organizations where you can, even if the program is not developed in that particular professional organization, you can reach out and say, hey, I'm new to the profession. I am feeling overwhelmed with this. I know I have taken all of the classes. I have been certified. I have passed all the tests. They gave me this wonderful degree. However, in this moving into the career or the first position that you're offered, it does become overwhelming. So mentorship, whether it's within your company that you start, because sometimes some companies will offer mentorship with senior leadership with the new employees. That's one way. Also, I saw and I heard several fraternities and sororities on the line. Mentorship can play in a peer relationships as well within your social and organizations as well. So those are ways that you can align yourself with others who may be feeling the same way or who have already felt that same stress, pressure, and feeling overwhelmed with coming into the profession as a new professional. So those are some tips, as well as making sure you take care of self-care. Self-care is not selfish. It is for you to make sure that you're okay, because if you cannot pour anything out of an empty cup. So if you are overwhelmed and your cup is depleted, what are you giving? So you have to be mindful of that as well.
Thank you, Dr. Presley. Dr. Presley, I'm going to ask you to repeat something because I want to make sure that everyone.
Oh, no problem.
Say it again for the people in the back that might be multitasking and doing something else. Let them know that self-care is not selfish.
Hear ye, hear ye. Self-care is not selfish. Some people may call you selfish. Why can't you come meet me? Why? No is a end statement. Can you come meet me for lunch? No, I appreciate the offer. No, maybe another time. No, self-care is not selfish. You have to take care of yourself. You cannot pour out of an empty cup, pitcher, saucer, whatever you have. You have to have your cup full as well in order to give and help someone else. Because again, if you're running on steam and fumes, sometimes that's where mistakes happen. I will say in my career, in teaching as well, when I'm teaching from fumes or running on steam, that's when I make the most mistakes. I will tell you, I taught a class this summer. I taught the wrong chapter. And the students, they just kept writing notes. I was like, why didn't y'all tell me this was the wrong chapter? I jumped 5 chapters ahead on them and taught the whole class. And when I look back at the material, I said, what is wrong with y'all? Y'all could have stopped me and said, Dr. Presley, this is not chapter 3, that's chapter 9. But again, when you're running on fumes, you make mistakes like that.
Thank you so much. Look, when
No
it comes
problem.
to self-care, the doors of the self-care church are now open. You've heard the minister. Is there one? Love it, love it, love it. Excellent. So my next question, Mr. Walker. Lost track of my question here. What educational background would a student need to work in your profession or field? Whether it's a college degree, certification, any specialized experience?
So I spent the majority of my career in intelligence. I'd recommend a student who had pursuing a degree in regional studies, whether that's Asian studies, African studies, Asian studies. So those type of areas. So you are the regional subject matter expert in that area, supporting whether it's the military or the Defense Intelligence Agency or maybe CIA, but you are that regional expert that they want to come to do reports and papers in that field. Or possibly also national security studies, homeland security studies, or possibly studying different foreign languages. So you could possibly be a linguist supporting a lot of the intelligence organizations, or you can actually work for the State Department to be able to be a foreign service officer. So being able to have those specialties or those skills in foreign languages and area studies are critical skills, and also people skills. You have to be able to have people skills also to be able to work in these fields. Because it's all about, again, someone talked about relationships. It's all about being able to develop relationships with our foreign partners, whether it's a business or whether it's an intelligence development of different projects in that country. So relationships, languages, and basically studying those cultures.
Excellent. Francesca, I'm going to pose the same question to you. In terms of any specialized skills, certification, education, what would you recommend for someone following your path?
Sure. So as I stated in the beginning, I work in pharmaceutical sales. My degree was in biology. However, and I actually wanted to be a doctor too, Carla. However, I got to organic chemistry and realized that I really didn't want to be a doctor, but I couldn't at my sophomore year change majors and waste college tuition that had been spent. So I said, where can I use my gift of gab and my biology degree? So it was actually through one of my mother's sorority sisters that I was introduced to pharmaceutical sales. So I would recommend either a degree in the sciences, but most pharmaceutical companies just require that you have a degree. You could have a degree in marketing and still get into the pharmaceutical industry. The main thing that most pharmaceutical or device companies are looking for is a 4-year degree and perhaps 2 years of outside sales experience. So perhaps over a summer, you work in sales, or one of your jobs is in sales. It's just the ability to, number one, have a college degree. And then a skill set that's so important is the ability to connect with people, all sorts of people, and the ability to network. Many times my sales representatives are trying to get to the doctor in the back of the office to talk about our product. But if you cannot connect with the lady at the front desk or the doctor's nurse, sometimes you do not get access to the physician. So I believe I heard one of the panelists talk about always wanting to improve some of your soft skills. It's very important to not only have a degree, but also be able to connect with people, network, or as I tell my team all the time, how do you win friends and get back? So that's what I would say is required for a job within the pharmaceutical industry.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you. I'm going to shift gears with a different question. So Joe, Mr. Williams, This one I'm going to toss your way. Now, some of us on the call, and I'm in this category also, some of us on the call, I'll say, are a little bit more tenured than others. That's a nice way of saying it. And what I mean by that is, when we were growing up and coming out of high school, going to college, early on in our careers, the beast called social media did not exist as it does today. Just didn't. So if you would, talk to us a little bit, and what would you say to our youth today about the impact, both good and bad, of social media upon their career?
So I used to coach an AAU basketball team, travel basketball team, and also high school football. And this came up as a result, of kids being open to social media, using social media. And essentially, your social media is your resume. A lot of businesses are using that to do research on you before you get a call back or before you actually have an interview, so they can get an understanding of who you are, who you really are, as opposed to who you will present yourself as in an interview. So be careful what you post. I told my both of my sons and all of the kids that I coached, be careful what you post, be careful what you like. Be careful, because that is going to be a reflection of your image to your future employer. On the flip side, it can be a good window into who you are. It can be a good representation of who you are, some of your thoughts, or some of the things that you do outside of the job place that can make you more attractive to your employer. So again, it is a double-edged sword. I think we talked about being authentic. I wouldn't advise necessarily having two profiles, one where you're getting ratchet and another where you're kind of more conservative. But I would say be true to yourself in terms of what you're posting, and just think about, if somebody else sees this, if my employer, my current employer, my future employer sees this, is this the best reflection of me? And then in that case, and I've had to practice this myself, sometimes the best post is the one that you don't post, the one you don't push send on. You just eat it and let it ride.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. And for our youth, you reminded me of something, Joe. We have seen several instances of young people coming out of high school, getting full rides, full scholarships, just everything paid for. And then that one post or that one ill representation on social media causes that school to step back and say, no, we're not going to invest in you. In fact, we're going to pull back that scholarship. And we may even question whether you're going to come to this school, even if it's 100% on your own dollar. So be careful. Be careful. Carla, what have you seen, bad, good, or indifferent, or what would you recommend from a social media perspective as it affects one's career?
I really would just have to echo what Mr. Williams just said. What you put on social media is there, it gets shared, it's screenshotted, and they try to tell people that once you post something, it's kind of hard to get it back down. So just keeping that in mind, on everything, there's some things on social media that are very entertaining, like TikTok, but just keeping in mind also, one of the things I see with today's youth is oversharing. They share so much of their personal life, so much of, intimate things they're going through. And then not everyone on social media is nice. There are a lot of people who are extremely cruel. And then the information you share comes back against you in a negative way. And then people say, well, you shouldn't have shared it. So really just being mindful of what you're putting out there. And we've seen in the news where people have put things out there, negative things, rants that they go on in public and then lose their jobs over it. So it can be very dangerous. I think the youth really has to be mindful about what you're putting out there. Certainly if you're putting it out there in public, but even if you're putting it out with just friends only, it can still get shared. So just really think before you post.
Great, thank you. Nia Tanner, what advice would you give to a young student who doesn't quite know what they want to major in? I know that's a big question, but what would you suggest that they do?
I would suggest that they explore so far what in their academic career they enjoyed. You can talk to a college, your college counselor or dean or whoever it is. You usually assigned a person on campus who is kind of like your mentor on campus to try to think about, what you want to major in, because what you really don't want to do, especially now that the cost of tuition is rising, is consistently keep changing your major. In the end, it's not going to be worth 3 extra years or 2 extra years of college because you kept changing your major. By sophomore or wherever, some point you have to kind of pick your pony and ride it to the end, because even once you do that, it's not like once you get into the career field you're stuck doing whatever your major was. Your major really is a launching pad, and so choose it wisely, and make sure that even when you with your major, you'll be taking courses outside of your major as well. So, choose it wisely, but don't keep changing, because in the end, it won't be financially worth it.
Love it. Pick your pony and ride it. Love that one. Love that one. Dr. Bernita, even after one chooses his or her respective major, what advice would you give around linking that major to what you truly want to do on the other side of getting that degree?
Yes, that's a great question. One thing I will say, I do want to go back to the social media part, is
Sure.
Also start building yourself as a personal brand, just in a digital content creator. I'll put that out there now. It is an actual career. It is a stream of income, and you don't have to be a particular age. So use your energy for social media wisely and go that route. As far as picking a pony and ride it, I totally agree. I have 5 degrees, and I am fortunate to where they all flow and they make sense for what I do now. But when you pick a degree, I think everyone should have a STEM degree. That's just me, because of the things that you get from that foundational degree and the skill sets that you get from that. And that'll help you transfer over to whatever you want to do. It doesn't have to be mathematics, although I'm a little biased, but it can also be in any of the sciences or technology. And that way, when you have those foundational skill sets, then you can start opening up to doing whatever you want to do. But then you don't have to necessarily relearn anything. Now you can be put into, I think, in any environment, because you have that skill set, and then the doors are open. So the good thing about now, you don't have to stay at a particular job. You just now need to find, how else can I add value? Now you're looking at gaps of, if it's a company, if it's your own business, or whatever it is, what are the gaps? And now, after you've obtained the degree or you've picked your pony, now you're focusing on your value added. And I think that's what's missing sometimes. It's like, oh, I have this degree, or I know this, and then you rest. But that's not the end point. Is where can I insert these particular set of skills and make the best of it?
Great. Thank you. Thank you. Now, Dr. Kirk, Dr. Murray, I have a couple of questions to ask, and I may have to borrow some additional time, because I know that responders are going to be so passionate about the question that I'm going to throw out there now. I might even ask you a question, Dr. Murray. So let's start with you, Joe. I'm not going to ask, did you join a fraternity? We see you. We see you front and center. Tell us about your experience, not only joining, if you joined at an undergrad level, but also what it means to you after college and how it may advantage you from a career perspective.
So I joined alumni. So after undergraduate, at the time it was myself, my wife, and my young son, and I kind of just did a little bit of soul searching. Looked at the men who really impacted my life. I assume this is pretty much similar to a lot of undergrads, and I had a lot of good ties with Kappa Alpha Psi and the brothers of Kappa Alpha Psi. So I decided to make that move. And I'll say in part because there were, obviously some other, love of the fraternity and so forth, but it was about establishing a male peer group. I think we mentioned that earlier. Just being able to be around men of similar mindsets, sharing, talking, laughing, joking, that kind of thing to kind of offset or balance, the work part of life, the family part of life, and things like that. And so far, I obviously don't have any regrets. I mean, it really has been more than what I initially thought it would be. And it has been there to, support and help, and sometimes just, make the happy times happier, just being there. So I hope that addresses the question.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you so much. Francesca, let's hear from you.
So I knew from the time I was a baby on the day of birth, that I would be an Alpha Kappa Alpha woman, because my mother was an Alpha Kappa Alpha woman. And honestly, just to give credit as well, my aunt was introduced sororities to my mother. My aunt was actually a member of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated. Nonetheless, Alpha Kappa Alpha has been a part of my life, my entire life. When I think back on just the good things in life, those big rock moments, those memorable moments. As a little girl, my mother had her sorority sisters there supporting. As I think back, maybe the valleys of life or the down times, my mother's sisters, sorority sisters, were there. And as I think about, as I just told you, it was my mother's sorority sister that helped me get into the pharmaceutical industry and really teach me the importance of networking. So I learned very quickly on that just because I had the degree didn't guarantee that I was going to get the job. But it was through the sorority that I learned it's not what you know, it's who you know. So I am very blessed in the chapter that I belong to of 60 plus members to have 60 plus college trained, educated, beautiful women that I can reach out to with the highs and lows of life. I can reach out to with the everyday things that happen with my household and my kids. And there's just nothing like the sisterhood that a sorority can't provide, whether it's Alpha Kappa Alpha or the others. You can definitely benefit from becoming a member of such an illustrious organization such as Alpha Kappa Alpha, which was the first historically Black sorority founded on Howard University's campus. So I knew without a shadow of a doubt that I would be an Alpha Kappa Alpha woman, and my daughter, whose name is Ivy, she knows that she will be an Alpha Kappa Alpha woman too. Thank you.
Thank you, Francesca. See, I knew we were gonna get a little bit of a history lesson from someone. So thank you. Mr. Walker, tell us about your tie-in, not so much your tie-in, but just being Greek. How did that either help you through college and really in the transition from college into your career?
Okay, you got me fired up now about talking about first fam. I'd like to say, especially more towards career-wise, when I was in college, I used to read a lot of autobiographies, and especially about people who were like-minded and who I kind of aspired to become. People like Thurgood Marshall, Martin Luther King Jr., Jesse Owens. You look at people like this, Hill Harper, Roland Martin. These guys a lot of these gentlemen were pioneers. So, and interesting enough, they all wound up becoming alphas. And of course, all the different fraternities have their own personalities. But I believe when I looked at Alpha Alpha Fraternity Incorporated, that they were very distinguished. And as I pursued my career, we were talking about networking, the power of networking and being part of organizations that kind of help you. Because a lot of times your resume, may be very impressive, but if you're not part of a network, a lot of times you're not able to reach those different people that you need to be able to reach to be able to have an effect. And I think also when you're in these organizations, you're an individual, but you find yourself become a part of something so much greater than yourself. And when I think about Alpha Fraternity Incorporated, And again, thinking of some of the people who have come through the organization, you inherit some of those characteristics that those gentlemen that preceded you, had that made them great. So it kind of gives you that extra level of confidence to be able to be great yourself. And when you go out there in the world to try to affect change in an area, you find yourself having that much of a greater impact because of all the power and energy and force and history behind you.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that.
I'm sorry, was I on mute?
No, we heard.
No, we heard you.
I can start over. No, I'm good. Hey, thanks.
Can I add, I know we're running late, but can I add really quick? When we're wrapping it back around to the confidence in the meeting, if you can stand up and run a committee or make a presentation in front of your fraternity brothers or your sorority sisters, the way they will beat you up, that gives you confidence to stand in front of people at your job. Understanding Robert's Rules of Order, just understanding how to work with people in a semi-formal or maybe a less formal atmosphere. I think that definitely translates over into being able to have that confidence and that true self when you're in a professional environment. Just wanted to add that.
Excellent point. Excellent point. Thank you. Dr. Christie, how much time do I have?
Probably about 2 minutes.
Oh, wow. 2? You sure it wasn't 22?
Oh, I'm positive. I have a 2:30 in. I want to be respectful, but I do need to give some instructions before I close out today.
Gotcha. So, a couple of questions, and you don't have to expound upon this since we don't have a lot of time. Coutura, when you think about someone transitioning from college to the professional world, what are 2 bits of advice you would give?
I would say be open to different opportunities. And I guess the second piece of advice would be to just trust the process.
Got it. Be open and trust the process. Dr. Bernita, what 2 pieces of advice would you offer?
I would offer getting into personal development and personal growth as early as possible to know who you are for self-awareness, and then to find new skills and sharpen the skills that you currently have.
Excellent. Nia, what 2 pieces of advice would you offer?
Learn how to negotiate your salary and understand personal finance, because there's no point in putting in the work if you aren't getting the bag.
Love it. Get the bag. And keep the bag. Dr. Presley, what 2 pieces of advice would you offer?
I would echo that, what Nia said. I just got an interim position and I had a few emails going back and forth. And finally, the dean said, do you mind if we do a Zoom meeting? I said, no problem. I said, I want to clarify the stipend that we're talking about. I want to clarify what it is that that we're talking about before I agree to taking this interim position. So I would echo that because I just finished doing that negotiation process July 29th. So that is very important because one, they're going to, not all the time, but most times companies will lowball you just because, not because of your experience, not because of what you can bring to the table, just because they're looking at their financial security in the world of the company. So you need to do your research. This is my one thing. You need to do your research on the positions, the area in which you will be employed, to know the salary in the market. Because if you do not know those things, so education is not just what you learn, getting your degree, getting your certifications, it's also educating yourself about the position, the area, because in different areas of the United States and around the world, the pay fluctuates. And so you need to know those things, because again, if you do not know that, and you take a position and you say, okay, I want to live in Baltimore. This is what I know people make in Jackson, Mississippi. And so you take the same pay at the same company, Jackson, Mississippi and Baltimore, you're not going to be able to eat, baby.
Thank you.
So you need to do your research on different positions when you're going into the career world. So that's, I gave you a couple, but that's the main one. If you don't do nothing else, you need to know the location, the cost of living, and what the salary is for that particular area.
Great. Thank you so much. Carla, wasn't going to forget you.
My two are, I'm sorry, was it a different question?
No, same question. This is my last formal question. So what 2 pieces of advice would you give?
Listen and learn, because you don't know what you don't know. And if you're coming from school to a profession, there's a lot you don't know and you don't know it. Also, find a mentor, even if they don't know your mentor. You can see someone in that organization that is doing well and just kind of watch them, learn what you can from them. Sometimes you can learn from just observing what they're doing, and sometimes they will talk to you and give you tidbits of information on how they got to where they are. But definitely listening and learning when you're starting out is my recommendation.
Excellent. Thank you. We are quickly approaching our time. First of all, let me thank each and every one of our panelists. What an outstanding array of skills, knowledge, experience, and we appreciate your transparency in sharing and giving our young people and parents as well just some great nuggets, not just nuggets, but a truckload of information. So I thank each and every one of you. We are very appreciative of that. Dr. Christie, once again, what a group you assembled. Love it, love it, love it. Look, I'm even making myself some notes here on the side. So I appreciate each of you. Thank you for your transparency and your responses and your willingness to just share the wealth. That's what it's all about. And hopefully our young people that are on the call that are pulling all of this in, and I want them to remember, to our young people, as you climb, be sure to lift someone else along the way so that when you get there, you're not the only one. It gets lonely when you're the only one.